She walked into that mansion believing it was just another cleaning job. No warning, no protection, just a quiet hope to finish her work and leave unnoticed. But the way the room fell silent the moment she arrived said everything. This invitation was never innocent. Smiles turned sharp, whispers carried cruelty. What began as a joke was about to expose something far darker than laughter. Because this wasn't just about one woman being humiliated, it was about how easily dignity is taken when power meets prejudice. And what happened next forced everyone there to confront a truth they tried hard to ignore. How far can mockery go before it becomes unforgivable?
For years, she had lived by a simple routine. Wake up before sunrise, take 2 buses across town, clean houses that never felt like hers, and return home with tired hands but a quiet sense of pride. She wasn't rich, powerful, or noticed, but she was dependable. Neighbors knew her as the woman who never complained. Employers saw her as invisible labor, and to her family, she was the reason food stayed on the table. That morning felt no different. She ironed her uniform carefully, packed a modest lunch, and checked the address written on a folded piece of paper. A new job, a large house, better pay than usual. She didn't ask many questions. Experience had taught her that opportunities like this didn't come often, and refusing them wasn't a luxury she could afford. The mansion sat behind tall gates in an expensive neighborhood where people like her were usually seen only through car windows. As she waited to be let inside, she reminded herself to stay polite, keep her head down, and do the work well. That had always been the rule. Blend in. Don't draw attention. Leave quietly. What she didn't know was that this invitation wasn't about her skills or reputation. Somewhere inside that house, laughter had already started. To them, she wasn't a person arriving for work. She was part of a plan, a joke meant to entertain, a reminder of power and privilege dressed up as harmless fun. And as the gates slowly opened, she stepped forward, unaware that her ordinary day was about to collide with someone else's cruelty, setting in motion a moment that would expose more than anyone expected. The moment she stepped inside, the air felt wrong, too quiet, too watchful. The marble floors echoed beneath her worn shoes as several pairs of eyes followed her every move. Conversations paused, laughter faded into thin, uncomfortable smiles. She lowered her gaze, the way she always did in places like this, and waited for instructions. She was led into a massive living room where luxury spilled from every corner. Crystal chandeliers, spotless white sofas, walls lined with art worth more than she'd make in a lifetime. A group of well-dressed guests stood together, drinks in hand, pretending not to stare. But they were watching, measuring, judging. The woman of the house finally spoke, her voice light, almost playful, the kind of tone people use when they don't expect to be challenged. She gestured vaguely around the room, pointing out areas to be cleaned, speaking slowly as if explaining simple tasks to a child. A few people chuckled, others avoided eye contact. No one stopped it. As she listened, she felt the familiar knot tighten in her stomach. She had heard this tone before. It wasn't anger, it was worse. It was amusement, the kind that strips dignity without raising its voice. She nodded politely, holding back the urge to leave. She needed the money. Walking away wasn't an option. Then it started to escalate. One guest whispered something, loud enough to be heard. Another laughed openly. Someone made a comment about how people like her must be grateful just to stand in a room like this. The words hit her one by one, sharp and deliberate. She kept her hands folded, her face calm, but inside her pulse raced. Every instinct told her this was no longer just a job. The woman of the house watched closely, eyes sparkling with satisfaction, as if waiting for a reaction. She wanted discomfort. She wanted embarrassment.
And when none came, she pushed further, asking unnecessary questions, drawing attention to her clothes, her accent, her background. Each remark was met with soft laughter, the kind that pretends innocence while doing real harm. Still, she said nothing. What they didn't realize was that silence doesn't always mean weakness. As she moved through the room, preparing to work, the tension thickened. Some guests began to look uneasy. This wasn't as funny as they thought it would be. The jokes lingered too long. The cruelty felt too real. But no one spoke up, because speaking up would mean choosing sides, and that's when things get uncomfortable. Then, something unexpected happened. A small detail, almost invisible at first, caught someone's attention. A quiet shift in posture, the way she carried herself, the way she responded calmly, intelligently, without fear. The room began to change. Whispers turned to silence, smirks faded. A few faces tightened, not with laughter, but with concern. The joke was slipping out of control. And as she straightened up, meeting the room with a steady presence no one had anticipated, it became clear this moment wasn't going to end the way they planned. Whatever they thought they had invited into their home, they had severely underestimated her.
The tension reached its breaking point when the woman of the house decided the performance had gone on long enough. She stepped closer, invading space that was never meant to be shared, her expression no longer playful, but sharpened with intent. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment to assert control, to remind everyone watching who belonged and who did not. The room held its breath. Every eye locked onto the woman standing alone at the center of the marble floor. The weight of judgment pressed down on her, heavy and unforgiving. Years of quiet endurance, swallowed insults, and learned silence gathered in her chest. This was no longer about cleaning. It was about being reduced to an object for amusement, about being stripped of humanity in a room full of people who knew better but chose comfort over courage. Then something shifted. She straightened her back, slowly, deliberately, not in defiance, but in certainty. The calm on her face unsettled the room more than any outburst ever could. The expected reaction never came. No shame, no fear, no apology for existing, just a steady presence that refused to bend. The air changed instantly. Whispers died, glasses lowered. A few guests looked away, suddenly aware that they were witnesses to something ugly, something that could not be laughed off. The power imbalance began to crack, not with noise, but with silence, the kind that exposes truth. And in that silence, the cruelty stood naked. What had been designed as a joke now felt like a public indictment. The woman who had orchestrated it sensed the shift and tried to reclaim control, but it was too late. The room no longer belonged to her. Every stare now questioned her intentions, her character, her humanity. For the first time since she arrived, the woman at the center was no longer the smallest presence in the room. She was the strongest. Because in refusing to be humiliated, she had forced everyone there to confront the ugliness they had enabled. And the moment they realized it, nothing could go back to the way it was. What happened next would determine whether this story ended in quiet shame or lasting consequence. The evening ended without applause, without laughter, and without the satisfaction anyone had expected. The guests left quietly, their conversations unfinished, their expressions heavy with discomfort. What had been planned as harmless entertainment dissolved into something far more sobering, a moment none of them could easily forget. The house returned to silence, but the weight of what had happened lingered in every corner. She gathered her things with steady hands. No one stopped her, no one joked, no one looked her in the eye. For the first time, she wasn't leaving as someone unseen. She was leaving as someone who had been witnessed. The humiliation they intended for her never fully landed, but the truth they exposed about themselves did.
In the days that followed, the moment replayed in her mind, not with anger, but with clarity. She understood now how often cruelty hides behind smiles, how racism doesn't always shout, it laughs, whispers, and disguises itself as humor. Yet she also understood something else just as powerful. Dignity doesn't require permission. It survives even in the most hostile rooms. That night did not suddenly change the world. It didn't erase injustice or fix a broken system, but it changed something important. It forced a room full of comfortable people to confront an uncomfortable truth, that silence enables harm, and participation doesn't always look like action. Sometimes it looks like laughter. Stories like hers happen every day, in workplaces, in neighborhoods, in spaces where power believes it will never be questioned. And most of the time, they go unseen, unchallenged, and unresolved. So the real question isn't what they did to her. It's what we choose to do when we see moments like this unfold. Do we look away, or do we finally speak up?